My friends, we have a big chunk of review to get through. 2025 is coming to an end, and it's been a crazy year. I have for you a whole bunch of updates from throughout the year, things that dropped, things that happened, drama that occurred, all the things that I can find. It's not everything, but it's a good review of the year, along with the roadmap that had all the features and stuff, but also along with my own feed on the channel, Space Tomato Gaming channel, where I release polls every month. And if you haven't seen them, go check them out, because honestly, we're only getting input from my community here. And the more people who answer these polls, the better an idea we will get of how the game is being considered. Because, like, I'm gonna be honest, dude, the freaking comments sometimes I get here, people will be like, if you're so negative about the game, all your answers are going to be negative. And I'm like, well, first of all my answers aren't negative. And second, I don't think most people would consider me to be negative about Star Citizen. But yeah, I want a more diverse pool of people to get to answer these polls. Either way, that's part of our year in review. We're going to go through every single month to see how these answers ebbed and flowed, along with just like following the devs and what they did throughout the year. Welcome to 2025 in review. We're going to be starting with the 2025 letter from the chairman, 2024, to talk about what they wanted to start out this year doing. As we jump into the new year of 2025, our primary focus across our Star Citizen teams is clear: improving playability. Our drive for playability surrounds three critical areas: performance, stability, and content. We understand that the live environment must be far more reliable and consistent, and we are determined to deliver on this. The sentiment many of you have shared, and one we wholeheartedly agree with, is that if the current game as it stands today ran smoothly with fewer obstacles and bugs, it would provide an unparalleled experience over the years. We have experimented with different approaches to improve quality of life and tackling tech debt. However, the ongoing challenge has been balancing these efforts alongside the introduction of new features and technology. Alright, so basically this first part of this letter, and the first thing really that was said about 2025, was they were like, hey, we know that the game is rough, and we need to get you guys into a better game so that you can actually experience the stuff that's going on. And throughout the year, we're gonna now cover whether or not they were able to do that. Now, they talked about a couple different things to make that happen. First was decoupling feature development from content creation and general fixes. So introducing the tech preview channel and using it in the EPTU for the features that we wouldn't necessarily want to see destabilize the game, but still needed to be tested. That did not occur until September, as we'll see here. Yeah, that's this is part of what they were setting up for 2025 as what to expect. Now, last year we were saying over 1 million of you have played 32 million hours in the game this year. Wait, what? Isn't that? I could have sworn he said it was 48 million. Yeah. 64 million hours played in Star Citizen in 2025, 48 million played in 2024. But here he's saying it was 32 million hours. Bro, am I missing something? Up from 48 million in 2024. What? So is it less? Because it would be more impressive to say here that it was 32 million. That would be a full-on doubling of the hours played. So why, I don't know. But at the end of last year, they were talking about needing to make the game play better and bring in more content more regularly. Because for those who remember, before 2024, like a mission being added to the game was a big deal. So let's jump in. The first patch of the year was 4.0. Not 4. This introduced Pyro. It gave us the Guardian. It brought in contested zones. It was good because of this. We got jump points, which was probably the biggest part of the whole patch, jump points and server meshing, really. So the addition of Pyro was great. I would say that the actual addition of Pyro doesn't really matter that much. It was the server meshing. I think Pyro was a fairly uneventful addition to the game, all things considered. Like, Nyx is a more exciting release than Pyro, in my opinion. Pyro was exciting because it was new, but Nyx is exciting because there's just more going on in it, and it feels more reliable to go to. I don't think it has more content, at least planned. It doesn't have the planets, doesn't have the outposts, the factions, but the storyline that it came with was better, and the landing zone that it has performs better. So it just, I don't know, it just feels better as a release. 4.0 was good for server meshing for sure, but overall I think that not just the release and the stability of it, but also the way that 4.0 happened, the state of Pyro still after this leaves this being a little bit of a sore spot. I'm happy about 4.0, but I don't think it landed quite like 3.0 did, for instance. All right, continuing on after 4.0, they dropped 4.0.1, and I think made one of the biggest first decisions that told us this is going to be a year where we take the experience a little more seriously. So here was an update that they had given for 4.0.1 in January 31st. And the biggest thing that I would say happened in this letter was here. As we mentioned in the letter from the chairman in December, our top priority is playability, ensuring that your experience in the verse is smooth and enjoyable as possible. That means dedicating all our resources to improving stability, addressing critical issues, and delivering meaningful quality of life updates. With that in mind, we've made the decision to forego the Red Festival free fly. This reinforces what we said in December. Star Citizen needs to work, and it needs to work well. Right now, our focus is on continued hotfixes and subsequent patches to bring the experience to a much better place. Think that was a good call. It caught most of us by surprise. I don't know anybody expecting CIG to cancel a marketing event. It wasn't even just a good idea in terms of saving the game's stability, but also reinforcing what he's saying here, reinforcing the ideas that they set out with the whole playability push. All right, besides this skipping of the free fly, they also talked about some other things that were going on. The elevators were a problem. The characters stowing and repairing was a problem. Personal hangars. Oh my God, you guys remember personal hangars? You would hear other people's hangars. Your hangar might disappear. Your ship might be in someone else's hangar. It was pretty crazy. Load times, I don't remember load times being bad, but they're saying here that the load times have increased, combining with ongoing login errors. We had some mission systems. We lost a lot of missions when 4.0 came in. That was a bummer. Just, there were plenty of issues going on. But overall, this post, as you can see here, like, it made people feel better. It was a bit of a change from how Star Citizen usually does their messaging, especially when it comes to difficult releases. To my knowledge, this has not happened before, canceling a free fly. So, good move. This person said, there's a lot of friction in the community right now, and transparently like this is fantastic to see. Thanks, Xylo. Here's hoping some of the rather nastier issues can be hammered out. A good way to start the year. Yeah, it might have been struggling a bit, but nonetheless, a good way to start it. After that, the next month, we got the roadmap roundup, which really started to set the tone for the year and what was going to be happening. They opened it by saying, as we emphasized in the last letter from the chairman, and throughout our messaging this year, our top priority for 2025 is improving playability. Now, just in context, this was a letter released, this was a roadmap update released after they had gone and done their month of planning and talking. So in that time, they released 4.0. It was on the preview, people were playing it, they were able to see what the problems were, and they started to realize, how much time they might need to put towards it. In a recent episode of Inside Star Citizen, we shared our commitment to delivering more content patches more frequently. Because these updates are highly narrative-driven, we've adjusted how they appear on the release view to avoid spoilers. As a result, some newly added cards in the release view are marked as redacted and will only be fully added once the content is officially announced or discarded. So the first update we got here was adding 4.1. We got a redacted mission giver, who we all know who that is now. Redacted mission giver location, redacted sandbox activity, armor set, space missions, 2 Volt weapons, the Hathor mining station, and the Hathor ground alignment stations. So this was already like a pretty significant change of like what to expect in a patch from Star Citizen, because before this, any given update would have been, we could just drop into any of these updates here. You got AI intercepting torpedoes. That's, honestly, that's actually kind of cool. Some basically AI combat fixes here, right? But then you go down to gameplay. Reputation V1 is there. The ability to reload at space stations is getting added in. We got a UI refactor in mining, countermeasures, some more AI changes, some combat changes, the ability for you to see where entries were on your ship, refining a tractor beam. That's actually great. 3.12 was actually a really big update. I picked a bad update to do this with. This is a good update. But this was a good update, right? And you can still see how much of this stuff was actually focused on pure gameplay. I would say the refining at space stations, the tractor beam addition, and the combat changes are good. But that's the kind of stuff that we would get pretty regularly now. I'm going to go one step further back so that I actually look like I was making a point here. And look at 3.11, where the things we got were force reactions, a really bad inventory system, planet tech update, and some ships. Let's see. We also got the cargo decks, which, you know, are very useful and super helpful in the game. They do a lot for us. Keep going back. There are some other places where, like, you get server-side object container streaming was pretty solid, but besides that, some AI pathfinding across planets, improved third-person camera, and a mission. Right? One mission getting added gets its own card in the update itself. Got the ability to punch people too. My point being that updates before used to be kind of like a conglomerate of features. And 4.1 was like the first one that really felt like they were theming a whole patch around something. That theme being mainly the Align and Mine event. But ultimately it was focused on the idea of like, there are now valuables in the world. Go out and find them. And they kept carrying on them, which I think was good throughout the year. But this was pretty cool to see. This was a huge drop of new things for us to get excited about. We just didn't really know that they wouldn't be talking too much about it in Inside Star Citizen. They would just let us see it here. So moving forward again, we got to have an update from the concept art team working on ships. This was in March. But here is where we got to see some interesting stuff about new upcoming ships that we now have in our hands.
Yeah. I'd say you have to focus on the fact that you're getting paid for it, at least.
Are we?
So we got to see the Pioneer,
Structures
which we haven't seen
that,
since this, actually.
That create these rooms. There are secondary beams, secondary bulkheads that are attached to the first ones, and the floor is attached over the structure, so there is space below the floor. How do you approach all this layering? We compartmentalized with color palette the different functions of this area. For example, we have the crafting stations in yellow, we have the cargo area and the passage in blue, something a little more calm because there is not a lot of movement. And where there is a lot of movement, like the elevator, we use
Very CNOU angles
So
and
what
stuff.
is this room?
this is the crafting stations. All of these are crafting pods.
Now here's something else we got. This
out
was
of
in
the sense here in the
concept
front.
back at the beginning of the year.
Like
We
they
just
come
got
out,
this
will
in
they be, like,
game.
we're not sure how much movement it's going to have on it yet, so there's still a lot of interpretation there, but it's also got like the little frilly bits on the side, like what the Vulture's got for the fracture field for the disintegrating stuff. I quite like that one.
And I think it's very cool. Chat's taking to this one really well.
Hell yeah.
Looks like a kind of a.
Chat, is it real?
It's very Anvil.
It looks like a cover car, sort of. It's kind of cool.
Do you like
And then there's this guy.
this guy, he's like an
evil
much more
This looks like a
stereotypical RSA, I
stealth
guess. It's
courier
like, kind of got a
ship or something.
Zeus-y, silhouette. So it's a lot flatter.
This one.
But it's also got its big salvage grabbies on the front.
Who makes the pice? Oh, I can't remember what manufacturers the pice.
Anvil.
Huh?
Anvil?
Yeah. But I definitely.
And then there was another ship that showed its face here for the first time.
Besides the retro sci-fi aspect is obvious. I also see Naboo.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
which is the same influence. Everything Naboo was all built from those old 1950s retro sci-fi, kind of shape language and stuff. So it's one of those things.
Oh, we weren't
it's
really
fine
surprised that the
lots of
Salvation
times
was
that
coming.
there's
We were
people
expecting that.
who are like, oh, that looks like that ship from that franchise. And it's like, no, we weren't actually looking at that franchise. It's just they were using the same influences we were. So some interesting posteriors here.
A model is the one they went with.
Take us through some of these options. What's this thing?
Which was the one that everybody was saying they liked. I'm pretty sure even later on here.
Keep reversing. This guy down here. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Nope, wrong button. I keep reversing it.
I thought the big circle was so we could put it on like a keychain.
They got rid of the
Not allowed to
circle.
talk, remember? Yeah. But yeah, with the little detached patterns, it's also very reminiscent of like the Buck Rogers of fires and stuff, which is another tremendous thing. And I think this is our last. Did you just say what's Buck Rogers?
Ooh.
go to sleep.
He does not look like he was
Thank God.
expecting that at all.
Finally.
Buck Rogers. 2003,
Please
he
don't
says.
clip that and put it out of context.
I still don't know who's Buck Rogers.
2003, he says. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back to that first image. These are all really cool.
Yeah, you're right.
One
The
of the things that
L22
really
does look
stands
like it
out
has some
to
G,
me
some G in
is
it.
how smooth they are.
I don't think we saw any other ships during this. I think it was mainly those three. But this was like one of the main ship focused pieces of promotion we got at the beginning of the year. Star Citizen Live was pretty lacking this year. Let's go back real quick to that time period and see just how much stuff they had put out by then. I'm pretty sure it was not very much. Yeah, right around here. So we got the Misk Fortune. We got this long talk
These
with
orders
Benoit,
and-
which is a very important talk. This was, I think, February time-ish.
You know, we have a team, an online team that takes care of what we call site reliability. So these guys are definitely the first watchers of all these metrics, and these guys will call out issues that we need to solve, right? And then they will loop in engineers. And so that's the core of the people working on this. But I kind of want to push back on what you just said about like, oh, the guys on the ship team don't have to do performance, right? Which I think that sometimes the way things are made in the game have a very big impact on performance, right? I can give examples, but like areas of levels that are created with hundreds of entities, right? Instead of using like a bare minimum, or there's techniques to use where group merging certain objects need to help reduce the actual effective size of things. So the teams on content are also kind of on the hook for performance, less so on stability, but they're on the hook for performance. And so they're not totally free.
Here's the most replayed part. Let's see what you said here.
Players like, oh, I got a 19K error. What does that mean, right? Like I go in Spectrum a lot in the SC testing chat, and I see players going like, what's the fix to 19K errors, right? And a 19K raw error is like your client can't talk to the backend service at all. So it's typically a client-side problem, firewall, machine connectivity, something like that. But the error message itself is really unclear, right? It's like, oh, we failed to.
Yeah, I
log
wasn't
you in.
saying too much.
Well, what?
This was a good talk. Like there were a lot of interesting things to hear in here, and I think it's good they did this because I would have not trusted it as much if they had just come out and done their final talk towards the end of the year. We'll touch on that too here. But rather he came on and he told us what he thought the issues were and what problems he was seeing. And that gave him a lot more context to come back to us in September and be like, okay, so I mentioned that these were issues. Here's what we've done to fix those. Feels a lot better than just saying, yeah, this stuff was happening and here's what we tried to do to fix it. From March, gosh, what even happened? What else happened in March? There really wasn't too much else going on, but this was where that Inside Star Citizen they mentioned came out, where they talked about the fact that they wanted to do more content this year.
Where did this idea of a content-driven push come from?
Well, as we sort of alluded to in the 1.0 presentation at CitizenCon, there's been a desire to get more emphasis on starting to build the storylines and the characters of Star Citizen Universe and getting them actually in game.
The way the content patches are going to break down are we're ultimately trying to provide new content to you each month. Alongside all of this, we're going to be essentially providing new missions, new events, kind of a lot of what we've done before, but taking it up to the next level.
This was an opportunity to start figuring out ways to engage the players in...
God, you can literally hear the quantum travel bug in the background there.
This was an opportunity to start figuring out ways to engage the players
I hate that sound.
A growing and expanding storyline.
We're going to be sending you all the way around the verse, doing lots of different varied types of gameplay. You'll still be doing events that are prevalent to a story that we're going to be working on as well.
I got you covered!
Don't call them events. Just confusing.
Well as new missions that build up the existing roster that we actually have in game already. There will be some content that is only there for a limited amount of time, but ultimately a lot of this content is still going to persist when we hit to Star Citizen 1.0. So we're actually building out the larger content map that exists in the game. On top of that, there's going to be a huge focus now on...
I think that's a key detail a lot of people missed. It's like before Star Citizen would release stuff that was kind of just useless long term. But this year they very much focus on dropping stuff that they're going to keep around.
Stability and quality of life too, because we want a stable environment for our developers to work in, but we also want a stable game that's less buggy, less crashes, and much more pleasant for you guys to play day to day.
So, again, this was like the February/March energy and communications going on. Around that same time, they did a little dev diary on performance and stuff, but then they released Alpha 4.1. And this is where we really got to see the first bit of what content was actually going to look like in 2025.
For a while now, and we're really excited to finish off that boss fight and bring it to everybody as soon as possible. But in the process of developing it, we've also got some smaller Valakar.
Valakar are a tremendously invasive species. Basically, once they kind of get into an area, they propagate rather quickly and can become a very dangerous presence.
I don't like facing the small Valakar.
Adults on a much smaller scale.
They're very annoying.
Because they come up from the ground submerged, they can surprise the player in the way that they come up behind them or can attack them from areas where they don't expect.
The Valakar will also fight the other Ninetales at the location if you've managed to find a way to let them be in each other's presence.
So it's going to be you against other players, against other Ninetales, against other worms?
Yeah, real Mexican standoff.
I like it. I actually like the Hathor locations, but I know these have been not a huge favorite for a lot of people. Now, what else came with 4.1 was the Golem. And this also, I think, was a pretty significant release of the game. I actually considered this to be a feature release because it has jump jets, which I do think are going to be a feature they make more use of going forward.
Containers.
But this was the first time we realized they were really going to start going in on mechs, and it wasn't just that cargo-focused one.
Once the container on your back is full, you can then detach it and replace it with a new one. But the most unique thing about the Geo is a new functionality: jump and hover.
We lost it for this. We were freaking so excited.
First, of course, but then you can leap quite big
Oh, did I say Golem?
distances.
Oops.
You can enforce the jump or simmer down the jump or the landing process by firing the thrusters.
You can press space to jump and then keep pressing space or hold it to give a thrust and kind of fly.
While you're in the air, you can maintain a small hover. You can adjust your aiming as you're landing. If you get stuck in a ravine or something, you can jump out to escape.
It's hilarious. It's fun.
We also did some updates to the existing Atlas. So it has now a health bar integrated into the frame, so you always see the health status of your Atlas. It also has a battery slot now.
Yeah, and
as of now.
This was actually part of this smaller bit in this update that, if I'm not mistaken, got quite a bit ignored. And that was the mining updates. There were mining updates here, right? Yeah, this. So I know this isn't a huge thing, but it was in the midst of this being dropped into the game that people were like, everything is combat. They're not doing anything for anyone else but combat. And of the people I talked to, this was actually a pretty appreciated mining update. Not just this, but I think there was one more later on in the year, and then another one right now in 4.5. And on top of that release of the mech for mining, which is, I think nice, we also got the Golem, which was the first time we saw a true starter ship for a profession. I think this was a really big move as well, and ultimately not at all focused on combat.
A new starter ship from Drake for people looking to get into mining.
It's very bare bones. They seen the prospector and was like, we can do that, maybe. And then went to the scrapyard and grabbed a bunch of stuff and stuck it together. Star Miner is, instead of having all these fancy heads that do fancy things and you skip a couple of steps, it's learning how to do mining, learning how the different heads and different consumables help.
I believe the best part is it's
This is part of playability, in my opinion. This idea of introducing the true starter-focused, beginner-focused types of gameplay, rather than just throwing people in and telling them, here's a prospector, here's a mole, learn how to mine. You got to get people with their hands on FPS tools, with a rental version, or even taking a mission where they run you through mining and then eventually they rent you out a golem to try it out. And then you turn that in at the end of the mission. These are the kinds of things I think make the game a lot better to play. Definitely make them better to get into. And as we can see from this letter from the chairman, with new people, or this is the previous year, as you can see from this year's letter from the chairman, with new people coming in and them trying to expand their numbers, they obviously need to focus on getting as many people into a better beginning starter scenario as possible. The final thing that we saw, or the final big focus we saw in this update, was something that I think everybody is just seems so happy about. This guy. Your boy Wicklow.
Welcome.
Welcome. I don't think we have anything else that highlights him or the things he does, but we all know Wicklow, right? We know Wicklow pretty well. He was, I think, I mean, he's a test case. Yeah, he's made to basically test the ability to hand things in and get something back. But unfortunately, he's being overused, misused, I think. I think he's both kind of a test for crafting. I think he's also the kind of person that's going to be a shopkeeper. Like if you go back to their I think it was 2021 demo, where they go down to the Pyro outpost and they're like shopping.
Old civilization that
right?
destroyed itself.
They're talking to this shopkeeper. I think this is our Wicklow in the future. I think this, at least the logic of Wicklow, could be used for this. Absolutely. Anywhere you go, they have different stuff you can get. And it's not really so much about you go to them, you get its quest, and then you go and try to find that stuff. You go to their part of the game, you explore their part of the game, you find unique items in that part of the game, and then you take them back to this shopkeeper to see what they can give you. So I think that they're onto something with Wicklow, and I think he's a necessary advancement for the game, but I do understand that like his implementation has been pretty rough and people have not been enjoying it. And if there's one clear thread of discontent throughout the year, I think that's it. Some people really love it, but there's so many complaints. I wouldn't say Wicklow is this year's Master Modes, but he's got a fan club. And then we got the Starlancer TAC, and they started to talk to us about some new advancements in missions. This was exciting to hear. Let's listen to just a little bit of this, because I think this really put into perspective how different the delivery of content was going to be this year outside of just these large named activities, sandbox locations, and events.
In Alpha 4.1.1, we are going to be dropping about 60 new missions, and it's going to be our biggest drop since 4.0. Let's start with our...
He says it's going to be our biggest drop since 4.0, but I don't think they've ever dropped 60 missions in an update. Maybe 4.0 had 60 missions. I feel like there's maybe a few updates that had that many missions in them.
Our big headliner, Hunt the Polaris. Hunt the Polaris is a mission where the Frontier Fighters have stolen a UEE Polaris, which was bound for Invictus, and they're trying to escape with it and get it back to Pirate. Your job is to stop them.
This is a very not popular event.
To stop them, you are chasing them around Stanton. You have to search for them, you have to ambush them, you have to defend other ships from them as well as they continue on their path to Pyro.
When you encounter the Polaris, it won't be alone. It will have some Frontier Fighter friends as backup.
Let's get the hell out of here.
What's really cool about this mission is you don't even have to do it alone.
The Polaris quantumed away.
So that was just one part of it, but there was also this stuff up
So it's
here.
a mission for.
No, for tactical masterminds. So Foxwell is giving these ambush missions because they are being paid by outside contractors to take down dangerous individuals around the Phantom and Pyro systems, which are causing trouble for their clients. And Handhunters, well, they just ambush anyone. They want stuff.
When you get to the ambush location, you will be asked to hide inside a new high emission zone.
Which means that the enemy can't detect you when they jump in. So
Look at
first
them
there's
not
a wave
wearing
of
helmets.
scouts
You guys are
that shows
crazy.
up, and they're gonna scan for their valuable transport.
Imagine going out and dogfighting and ambushing people and not wearing a helmet. What? So new missions were coming in, and things are rolling through. Now, like was mentioned in chat, we lost a lot of missions with 4.0, so this was a great addition, but it also was still like, hey, what about the other stuff? It was a great thing overall to see more combat missions coming in, specifically having NPCs running you through them and having some narrative attached to them made them a lot better. Also worth noting is the factions that they're mentioning here and the things that they're bringing in during the entire year. It's good to keep coming back to this page specifically because this is a page that 1.0 is going to depend largely on. What factions are giving us our missions, what reputation is going to matter. And if you look at the names in here, you start to see some of the people, you start to see some of the factions being added. Rayari, research and retrieve missions, High Point Wilderness Specialist, research, capture animals, hunt animals, we've seen those. Obviously, ICC is going to be where most people who want exploration gameplay are going to be getting their missions. That's not in yet. Has been mentioned though. But then you go to the Mercenary Guild, and you'll see Foxwell Enforcement is there, Citizens for Prosperity is there, Intersect Defense Solutions is there, you got Hawkrow Agency, the Bounty Hunters Guild, North Rock Service. These are all factions that we've seen starting to get missions in the last year. So it becomes clear that they are working towards their 1.0 goals, at least for the factions. And that was a big thing I noticed in 2025. I think it was good. The Headhunters are also here. Dead Saints have just started putting in some missions as well. The Bit Zeros started giving us missions earlier this year. No, sorry, maybe not the Dead Saints. Was it the Drop Kings? No, it's the Dead Saints because they're the ones who are doing the smuggling. So it's slow and it's not all in your face, but this is like a little thing in the background that I think is worth noting. Let's see what else was going on. Okay, so Invictus Week hit in May, and this is like the second biggest time of the year for them, as you can see on the lovely funding tracker. In May, they made $29 million compared to November's 32. Not quite as high, but pretty dang big. In the previous year, May, 25. Before that, 19. Before that, 21. Before that, 13. And before that, 16. So 29 is a huge jump for them. $4 million off of their previous biggest year. And a lot of that was due to this guy, the Idris. The Idris has been in the roadmap backlog, I want to say since like 2013. 2012 was when we saw the first Idris introduced. So for 13 years, this game was just a JPEG. Not quite, actually. We got to go on board it. It was used in a lot of in-game things. We just couldn't personally bring our own Idris out. It was not just a JPEG. It was actually, it's been around for a while because it's a Squadron 42 asset, but this was the first time they brought it out and allowed players to have it, and it was hype. Not only was it so hype from the player's perspective, CIG themselves came out and did like 16 rounds of sales on this thing, I think. Let me see if I can find that. Invictus Week, Idris sales. So here we go. Stock limited sales. These ships are considered exclusive and are therefore only sold in limited quantities over a small amount of time. Each stock limited ship is limited to 1 per account, and sales windows are usually available in 3 waves. First wave was day 1 for the Idris. Second wave was day 3 for the Constellation Phoenix. Third wave was day 11 for the Kraken. But I'm pretty sure they did, like, what year was this? This is 2955. Didn't they do multiple waves of the Idris? I think they, like, opened up more waves for the Idris after it got all num-nummed. I know they did even more waves for the Idris later on in the year in August, but the Idris was a big part of this Invictus week. It wasn't the only part, though. They actually had a few interesting ship sales during Invictus week we can look at. I believe the Starlancer TAC came out around that time. Obviously, the big one, though, was the Idris.
Patience. It's not passive. Not idle. It's quiet preparation. Sharpened intention. Resolute. To watch and wait. So, you hold against haste.
It's a cool trailer.
Beyond fear. Because you trust. From that quiet, your moment will come.
As long as you got a crew. Your moment will come, and then you see like 4 Ares come out of nowhere. Yeah, that was a pretty big moment for the game, and there was a lot of kind of rumor that it was going to happen. They were releasing teasers. I don't know if you guys remember, but like on their Twitter profile and stuff, they'd put out little pictures, and people were like, "Are they about to sell the Idris? Are they about to put the Idris in game?" Because they had originally said they weren't going to do it till Squadron, but this year, as has been made apparent, they were kind of focused on making some money. So they brought some more ships to market than I think was probably going to be the case. Good ship. It's a freaking carrier, so you can transport vehicles, 1,300 SCU of cargo, a whole bunch of bodies, and your 3rd mortgage on your house. At the same time, they also did the Starlancer, which I know a lot of you love. I personally love the Starlancer. Yeah, this came out in May as well. I think the Starlancer... Excuse me. Talking about the ship makes me burp sometimes. I think the Starlancer is one of the better sized ships for like a group of 4 or 5 people. It just really fits a nice spot. I would love to see something like this sized from CNOU, maybe, or Crusader.
You don't have access to every single gun on it. There's only 4 pilot-controlled guns.
I don't like the C2, so don't suggest it.
That it has these new 2 twin size 5 man turrets.
What makes this MISC is the shape language that was used to make this turret. It replicates the exterior of the ship, which contains round forms, welded forms, and chunky shapes.
Space Whale.
MISC as a manufacturer are kind of really proud of their manufacturing, and they're not afraid to show it. You kind of see all the compound forms that reveal the underlying structure, where the fuel cells are, but it's a little more refined. Paneling is a lot cleaner. It's not something like a Drake ship where everything's just completely exposed.
Yeah, this is like a mini Carrack.
I really like the MISC look. It's got this sort of darker stealth armor, so it looks really like sleek. The guys have done a really great job with the lighting on it. It's got this like really mean looking red lighting. It just looks really sick.
It'll be interesting to see how the build is used as a crafting and base building ship. Okay, now, are you guys ready? Because something big happened at Invictus Week. It was the drama of the year. We have to touch on it. It has to happen. Flight blades. Flight blades were introduced at Invictus Week. as components that go into your ship's computer ports to adjust flight behavior in 2 key ways: speed and maneuverability. Honestly, the addition of blades themselves is not, I don't think anybody has a problem with these. I don't think it's considered any sort of controversial thing. The controversial part of this was here, which they did change the answer of, so now it's not as controversial, but it said, will flight blades be able to be purchased from in-game stores? Originally it said, I guess it still said basically the same thing, that they were going to follow their normal route of only offering them for cash and then bringing them to the stores later. But this was a weird change because components haven't really been used like that before. Like, they said this as if flight blades were ships. Ships do have some level of exclusivity where they get released and you can't get them in game for 2 quarters or whatever, and then you can buy them in game. But like, components and stuff really haven't been used like that. And these are components, right? Like, you can see here, they list them as components. You can see here, they list them as ship components. Like, these are subcomponents in the same way that your fuses are subcomponents, that your filters are subcomponents in your life support. This ultimately introduced people to the idea that, okay, we're going to be able to buy quantum drives and power plants and shield modules and all that kind of stuff on the store now, rather than needing to like go into contested zones or go into other places where it might be more or less rare. Because ships are out the door, right? You're gonna buy ships regardless. They're trying to make some of them more rare to get in game, but ships are out the door, and components were kind of seen as the thing that wouldn't be. So when this came out, it caused a lot of hubbub, myself included, and people think that, like, I'm sure people are watching this right now that are thinking it was overblown and nobody should care about that. But I do think that everybody has a line in the sand of how far they're willing to let monetization be taken in order to make money for the game. So here was the statement that they put out on it afterward. Throughout Star Citizen's evolution, one fundamental principle has remained paramount. Everything you pledge for to support our development will eventually be attainable through gameplay. Your contributions help push things forward, but your time in the verse should be equally rewarded. We're pushing 11 patches this year. This is just like a lot of, here's what we're doing. To be clear, the new flight blades will be attainable for AUEC in our next patch this June. We followed our usual approach by offering early access on the Pledge store to help support development, but after some reflection, we've decided that for smaller components like flight blades or bomb racks, they should be available in-game at the same time they appear on the store. The choice has and always should be yours. If you want to support the project early, you can, but it's not required. If you own a game package, you'll be able to pick these up with in-game currency in our next monthly patch. And for our future gameplay kit introductions, we'll ensure these items are attainable in-game on day 1. Now, I'm pretty sure they did bring in the L22 Wolf. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I've not been able to find them, but maybe I'm just a little bit blind. With the L22 Wolf, they brought in new guns. Here we go. These weapon kits. I don't believe these are available in-game, but I might be wrong about that. If anybody in chat can... Yeah, you bought one? Okay, cool. So these are available in-game day 1. So they're sticking to that. But, obviously, the big thing was that these were being brought into the game and put on the store simultaneously anyways. A lot of people don't want them in the store at all, because, again, there's the monetization angle. But this caused a lot, I mean a lot, of attention. As you can see, just from the Google search I did, you just type in Star Citizen flight blades. It was everywhere. We'll type in controversy just for some good. It was everywhere. There were videos from all kinds of people and discussions all around the internet, the interwebs. Obviously, a lot of it was being had by people who don't actually understand Star Citizen. And like, oh my God, here we go. Our gaming, can't even imagine what all this stuff says. But I think there's a different take on this kind of thing from people who are actively in Star Citizen and understand kind of how it works and the direction it's going, versus people from outside just hearing that Star Citizen is charging more money for stuff. Either way, it's less about the flight blades and more about what might happen in the future. So we'll see where they go with it. Flight blades are an awful thing as they are now. Ship performance changes should come from tweaking the thrusters and other stuff on the ship, not by inserting a disc. I wouldn't mind some kind of tuning gameplay to be involved with the blades themselves. Like, you can edit their settings and the engineering. There were rumors at that time that a new guy from some AAA company took over marketing, and this would have been one of their first moves. They were there for a little while already by then. They were there, I think, at the end of 2023. But yeah, it mainly came from mobile game stuff. So after Invictus Week cooled down a bit, we started to see some stuff about 4.2, or Stormbreaker. This was the next update, and it actually introduced what they were calling at the time their B story, which I think we can all say doesn't feel like the B story anymore. This definitely became the A story. And this was a rough addition, I think, because it was the first true boss battle in Star Citizen that wasn't just a more powerful spaceship. And it really started to highlight the dynamics of doing things both group-based and solo-based, and what the fact that there would need to be soft barriers that they put in front of people's faces to let them know, hey, this is meant more for like a group of people, this is more for solo people. You can do either if you want, but it's going to be more difficult, because a lot of people went into Stormbreaker and there's a lot of frustration about how difficult it was for people who weren't necessarily running in a group, which, you know, MMOs do. But that wasn't the biggest controversy with this edition. No, you guys want to know what the biggest controversy with this update was? Because it's really funny. This one got to people, man. Here, take a listen.
Stormbreaker is all about taking the next step in exploration game.
God, wait, I think I got something for that, don't I? Don't I have something for that? No, I don't. Just one of these. This one got to people because exploration is a triggering word to many folks. I think mainly because exploration can mean a lot of things, and so when it gets brought up, people, like, if you're not talking about it in the way that they want to hear it, then you're gonna have a problem. So you could probably scroll down to the comments, to be quite honest, and see people, yeah, I missed the exploration part. Exploration and PvP, exploration gameplay. When will exploration be implemented? PvP is exploration. It's unfortunate, but everybody listened to that statement and then not the next sentence. Let me keep playing it for you guys.
Play. Making exploration work in Star Citizen actually requires you to go out and build locations that players want to visit. That's what we're doing now.
See, with context, it sounds completely reasonable. In order for exploration to exist at some point, there's got to be locations to visit. But unfortunately, because we all have the goggles of a 2-month-old, everything that happens must be necessary for whatever is the next 2 weeks of content. So, you know, the first chance you get to go, he shouldn't have said it, to be honest. That's the problem. Just don't say things that have to do with long-term stuff. What he meant, in my opinion, is like they just want to have more and more places that you can find without having to take a beacon to get there. And this was the first time they tried to do that. He shouldn't have said that they were trying to do it. They should stick with whatever is literally in the patch, which is the whole go through and find the ASD location stuff. But ultimately, this was another opportunity for them to try and build locations that are using old assets. The Hathor facility used the Theaters of War assets, which you can easily find in their video of it. I think in these videos you can see a little bit, like you see the laser here, you can see these buildings here. This is all Hathor stuff, and it was built back in 2019. And then you can look up the Good Doctor, which is a arena commander map in Star Citizen that uses... Thank you, Morph, for this video. So you can see this is very clearly the stuff they used for the ASD locations. These were just opportunities for them to push forward some story without using too much effort and add some interesting flavor elements into it that they were just trying to get players to play together, and this is an easy way to do so. That was Stormbreaker, and let me give you actually a quick look at what he was even supposed to include, because we haven't touched on what the actual update is.
Day 96. This is it. The breakthrough I knew would happen. The specimen holds answers far beyond their comprehension. Even the infants serve my purpose. They need an end to the regen crisis, and I will deliver it, despite my colleagues' protests. That is why I am essential. Where they see life, my mind sees the design. The data locked in flesh that must be harvested.
Creep. Don't say things that weird.
Science will not cower to moralistic fear. Progress requires clarity, not sentiment. To discover is to survive. To evolve is to rule. Once again, they put their future in the hands of science, yet still refuse to trust its judgment, its results. It's my responsibility to push forward. I must. I will save us all.
He didn't save us all. So that's the Stormbreaker event. Honestly, it's my least favorite major edition of the year. I'm not a big fan of the location. But it was our first boss fight. And it started off a story that I did think that led to my favorite part of the year. But it was definitely, I think Stormbreaker was the least interesting of the sandbox activities this year. Next up, we had another monthly report for July. And I think there was some interesting stuff being developed in here too. Let's see, core gameplay wise. Yes, they were talking about hacking. They were talking about crafting. They began technical work on the inventory. Engineering was entering the tech preview. This was engineering entering the tech preview preparation. This was July. This was the time that we were saying we should be seeing the tech preview be used at this point. But at this point, they were only just preparing to get into the tech preview. And we didn't know, but it wouldn't actually make it into the tech preview for another, 5 months? August, September, October, November, 4 months. Yeah. So it was a great sign and it was good news, but it was definitely still far away at this point. We didn't know how far. What else were they working on? They were working on FPS radar and scanning, which we're still waiting for in the game. And I believe there was some other, control surfaces and the flight system was going on. This was a really great update for core gameplay. But as you can see, a lot of what has been going on with the monthly reports this year is still not visible to us. Prior to 2024, a lot of this stuff would have been showing up in Inside Star Citizens and little sprint reports and stuff, but they've opted to not show us these things as early on anymore. And that was becoming pretty apparent by this point in 2025. Just going by their YouTube channel even, you could see the amount of videos they were releasing. Like that was here. This is July, and that's the end of the month. Going back to other years, you could find, like this is a whole year right here. This is June, or this is January, and you got what, 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, 22, 26, 30, 34, 38, 42, 46, 50, 54, 58. Wow. 60. Wait, did I pass a year? Red Festival, 2953. So this would have been the beginning of 2024. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. Right? Yeah, this is around May. 32, 36, 40, 44. So it would have been around August. 48, there's CitizenCon. 52, 56, Ship Showdown. 60, Pirate Week. How did we get to Pirate Week? So they just really, really dropped off on the Inside Star Citizens, wherever this is right here. But this is about 50 videos in one year. That would have been 2023, I think. As compared to this year, it was, let's see, about 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. Okay. 44, 48, 52, 56. Dude, that's actually, I guess because they had all these trailers for ships. Man, they really just replaced them with inside, behind the ships. Because a lot of this year, if you look at the Inside Star Citizens that came out, they're basically about the ships. We got one about performance capture at the beginning of the year, but besides that, there was this one about the Hornet. This one's about the new mission. This one was a content update, so that was good. This one's about the Golem. This one's about hairstyles. This is about the Star Lancer, new missions and update. MTC, Idris, Mirai Guardian, Anvil Asgard, new update. Esperia Prowler, new update. Meteor, new update. L21 Wolf, new update. Apollo, new update. No, this is a trailer. RSI Perseus, RSI Salvation, Drake Clipper, Drake Golem, L2022 Wolf, MDC, and then we got one with engineering. That's what happens when they start bringing features back in. We get a good, interesting Inside Star Citizen again. So I guess they actually did get a lot of videos out this year, but so many of them were just trailers and advertisements for their ships that it was easy to think that there were a lot less. So August brought with us the Resource Rush, which was I want to say simultaneously the best part and worst part of the game this year. It was an incredible opportunity for people to get into an event that was not really focused around combat at all. Some of it was a little combat, but for the most part, it was cargo focused, and it exposed some problems with the game. I think simultaneously it exposed problems with the game, exposed kind of what people are looking to do, and it got people to think about the game in a different way. We were suddenly thinking about the meta for cargo hauling and how to cooperate with people and taking on a challenge that was global. This was the first time we ever got progress bars that everybody added to that you could race against other teams with and get rewards for. And I think it was a much bigger moment for the game than we give it credit for, because I don't think we will ever go back to having competitions in game that don't have account bound rewards now. And this was an important moment to solidify that. This also solidified that the freight elevators were awful and they had a lot of work to do on them. But as a game in development and testing, I actually want them to do more things that break the game so we can figure those things out. So when it actually matters, it ain't happening as much. Now this was, I think, also a really good moment for the narrative team to flex and start getting people more invested in the lore. And I would like to point out that back in the beginning of 2024, we got a pretty big update that narrative was moving away from Squadron and starting to focus more on the Star Citizen in-game stuff. And I think this is a very, very clear, direct effect of that. And I love how it came out. Check this out.
Mighty, supreme, Hurston Dynamics. Submit yourself. Greatest empire in human history. Be lifted from obscurity to a higher purpose. Rise, instrument of greatness.
I love how overbearing Hurston is compared to everyone else.
Devote your life.
Hey!
And then Crusader comes in.
Molly! Vibing with my new Crusader crew. Hashtag besties, hashtag sponsored. Gathering resources and spilling the tea.
That guy's probably dead. That guy must have just died, right? That's really bad for you.
Sponsored. Gathering resources and spilling the tea. Food
so
is
microtech.
Not organic, and I had to sleep in a bunk. Ew. This is gonna be like.
Shut up!
Hardcore's where you'll find the grafters, the grinders, the dealers. Yeah, we borrow, sometimes steal, but we never beg.
Yeah, it's very hardcore.
Bounties in your sights. Hustle. Keep going. Through the blood.
Very cyberpunk.
Major.
You can tell she's even trying to. It's dark here. It's so dark. It's ArcCorp. Techno.
Lanes. This uniform is not serving sun-kissed glow. Miners, do not get fashion. But at least I snapped some cute pics. OMG, I'm a total mining boss.
Oh my god, I've been in this situation in an org event! I get it now! These are all just us! That's totally me! I'm even sometimes taking selfies in the game and then I get us in trouble. It's true! How many people have blown up in the third-person camera taking a nice screenshot? Come on. Come on. This is totally relevant.
You girls landed.
We just don't usually end up alive.
Go Crusader. Right, guys?
Microtech is tomorrow. Your contributions will help our dedicated scientists and engineers maintain our place at the edge of advancing research.
I half expect one of those scientists to snort some drugs on the side. Microtech's crazy.
Provides. Hurston commands. Hurston dominates.
Our labs and our facilities thrive on curiosity. We push further, think smarter, and
for glory. Sleep when you're dead, and do it for you, because the next score won't wait.
Join Microtech.
Crusader.
Hurston.
ArcCorp.
That's a solid trailer, man. I'm very excited to see how much more they can keep building on the lore, because the lore in Star Citizen's so interesting to me. I'm a easy to please sci-fi nerd, so your mileage may vary, but I find it to be very good, and I've been annoyed at how much it's not been in the game. So to see this stuff actually happening in the game now is, yeah, that's been one of my highlights of the year. It's a low-key highlight, but it doesn't make the biggest difference to the game overall, but it makes it so much more enjoyable for me, and I would actually put that under a playability kind of update. Now, after that update, we moved on to 4.3. This was an interesting time because I believe there was some, we started to get some senses of the tech preview being used. Mainly it was for Vulcan and, FPS improvement stuff, but it was around that same time of year. This would have been September. Ship showdowns going on. We all know that the Polaris won it because Polaris is big and powerful, yay. And it was kind of like the calm before the storm almost. CitizenCon was still a little ways out, but these updates were dropping in. 4.3 was dropping in, and I think with some great stuff. What these did was they reintroduced underground facilities. All the way back in 2052, they introduced the ideas of these
big and
underground facilities, which ended up turning into distribution centers, but they split them up. The distribution centers were up on the surface. We got those. They don't really use them as much, but we got them. Underground facilities disappeared until 4.3 this year.
Little nooks and crannies. If we wanted to stealth into the location, we'd be able to give opportunities for the player there. And down below, this is what the player would kind of see. So
we didn't actually get these parts of these facilities until 4.3.1, I think, or 4.3.2. But you can see that this is where the Onyx facilities came from.
To be as intuitive as possible. This is the upper area is blocked off, so the player has to go down below. So
it just goes to show how much they'll bring things up that they want to do, and those things don't end up happening. And they kind of figure out a way to include them in the game another way in the future. I'm wondering if the same sort of thing might happen with the Air and Halo belts. I'm certainly getting the feeling, though, that this is happening for a lot of stuff behind the scenes, especially when the Turbulent acquisition happened.
More towards the processing of it, maybe hydraulic cylinders for these elevators coming and going. Hierarchically, it's a different mood. So up above, it's cleaner, it's noisier, but down below, darker, more steamy. And again, that presents other opportunities.
And this is Ian Leyland, he's art director. So he talks a lot about what art is meant to do eventually, but not necessarily how the game is going to work. So you'll hear him say things like, you might do this, or you may be able to do this there. Oftentimes that gets brought up. That's because he's art. He's just doing the initial explanation. You can ask that to the upper higher ups. Why do you have the art people showing off stuff first? But, that's a different conversation. Anyways, 4.3 introduced the Onyx facilities. This is a continuation of that story we heard about earlier from the wormies being experimented on by that guy in Pyro. Remember that update I said was my least favorite? It led to this, which is like my most favorite. Hey, we don't go down that elevator. Hello? It's so funny that even like environmental dangers are interesting in Star Citizen. Yeah, the music is great too. I mean, if you had just let this person know you were there.
Some things are better left buried.
So it's getting you a little interested. What's going on? Why is there things? And it's, you know, like I said, the first time we really got a story. And I think it did a good job of building intrigue and getting people invested to actually find things out and experience a whole sequence rather than just trying out a list of features. Like these updates that we've been seeing that have these narrative additions. I know I was talking kind of about the difference between features back in this 3.0 era of updates versus 4.0. But something you'll never see here are narrative-focused additions. Maybe you'll get some kind of a dynamic event. Not even dynamic, it's more triggered event. But usually those are timed events, and they're pretty simple. They're not really story-oriented. So these additions have, I think, made a big difference to the game. All right, around this same time, we got a pretty significant update to medical. So the Apollo was coming out in September, and it is a concept ship we've been waiting for since I think 2018, possibly 2017. 2018 was when the Apollo was introduced. So we've been waiting 6 years for it. And at this point, it was kind of assumed that like this was going to bring a pretty significant change to medical gameplay. And so it wasn't too surprising when we got a medical gameplay update guide with the ship. Now, what it did was it covered most of the stuff we already knew. Injuries, the things you're going to use to handle those injuries, how you'll use them, the different drugs that are available in the game, the beacon functionality, how medical beds work, medical gel being the resource for med beds. This was a new introduction, but basically making it so that you can't just spam med beds all the time to use them for respawns constantly. You do have to still think about, you know, your supplies and a little bit more of that stuff. It also talked about the ships that are being used for these things, hospitals, all that jazz. I think what this did was it both informed us that medical gameplay is shifting. It's shifting away from this idea of being a medical clinic or ambulance that's out there going out to people, picking them up and taking them to somewhere else. And it's going to be more about you playing an active medic in a certain position or place. So you could go and land your medical ship out by Hathor and use your ship to allow people to respawn at it and just stay there. I guess that is still kind of a clinic, but they've democratized medical gameplay a lot more to the point where I don't think you're going to need to use a ship like this just to be a random medic out in the verse somewhere anymore. It seems like it's less about limited respawning and more about limited resources used for respawning. That being said, it's not the only thing they said about medical. They also gave us a little look into where things are headed in the future. This was mainly focused on talking about respawning and medbeds, telling us how medbeds can have certain attributes that make them unusable. Be good to note that this could be why they don't have respawns working in ASD facilities right now, or that could be a glitch. I'm not sure. We'll have to follow up on that and check. But it also introduced the idea of a respawn screen. Don't know if you guys have all seen this, but this is, in my opinion, another big change for Star Citizen. They say to account for these changes that are upcoming, including the ability to re-imprint and regenerate at multiple locations and apply a variety of status conditions to a medical bed, a new interface is currently in development. This will allow you to see game chat, it'll allow you to see your countdown info, incapacitated text, and it will let you see multiple locations where you can respawn based on what you've chosen in the past. I'm betting there's going to be quite a bit of information regarding how this will work. You'll probably have to specifically select each respawn location before you go out into battle, so you can't just pick one if it happens to show up. And that should give people who are flying medical ships a better ability to just float somewhere and be a clinic, like I was saying earlier, I guess. The one thing that I'm not too sure about here is like, what happens when you respawn on somebody's ship? How do you get to where you need to go? Are they going to have to fly every patient back to where they need to go? Or will there become some kind of shuttle they can call? I don't know, but this was a pretty big moment for medical gameplay because it both confirmed that medics looking forward to Star Citizen are going to need to kind of shift their expectations in what they might do as a medic. I think it also means that we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to understand that fully, but it also is just showing how much more lenient they're going to be medically for people in the game, despite still focusing on things like Death of a Spaceman. This is why when people freak out about Death of a Spaceman, I'm trying to say, like, don't worry. Clearly they're trying to still make this relatively forgiving. They just want to make you think more about these kinds of things. So yeah, then the Apollo came out, and they had plenty of things to say about it. I think the biggest thing was that the drones were not included in the initial concept, and that the size increased. They said, as with a lot of our older concepts, certain aspects of gameplay have changed or been revised, requiring adjusted metrics. In particular, the required space and angles for things like gurneys traversing the ship and using the rear ramp. So definitely less. This is a problem they had with older ships, unfortunately. But this is just the way it is. These ships get freaking huge now. But yeah, no drones was a little disappointing, and honestly, I think there's not enough medical gameplay to validate this ship being added, but it is added. It's another ship off the backlog, and it was a solid addition in terms of how ships are. It's just not that useful, besides a respawn point. Jumping forward, we actually learned about Nyx. I'm going to skip over CitizenCon because there was so much in there. It's dense, and we got places to be. I will include, though, that CitizenCon did a good job, I think, of messaging about the year ahead, even more so than the year prior. 2024, they did an okay with their job with their messaging, but I think they missed out on a lot of stuff. 2025 was much better at focusing on a few key things that they were fairly certain of, rather than the ifs and maybes. Specifically, they touched on Nyx, which we found out at CitizenCon would be releasing the next month. In Nyx, we got a new asteroid belt, which is rendered a little bit differently. I feel like is a lot better than the ones we have in Stanton. We got a few new locations. We got some new commodities, smuggling missions, interstellar cargo runs, and Levski. It was a new faction, and it brings in a couple of new missions and stuff, but honestly, it's not a ton of content. It's really the look ahead that's more exciting for Nyx. Unlike with Pyro, which was dropped in supposedly complete. It was nowhere near complete. But Nyx is being built like Stanton, which is over time. So while we do have the initial Nyx right now, and that was a great addition in November, there are things that definitely need to come to make it feel more full before you can call it your home and get all the content you want from there. As of right now, there's no FPS content, besides going and running the main storyline, and that's not good enough, in my opinion. Now, we do have the breaker stations coming up. These will offer for some pretty interesting sandbox opportunities, both in combat and in mining. We'll have municipal works in Levski, which will be more instanced and kind of dungeon-esque locations, sort of like the ASD Undergrounds, but inside of a landing zone. Tactical strike groups will be bringing in pretty large groups of people to fight together. I'm very excited for this. I think this is going to be one of the most interesting parts of the year, as long as they do get social tools in. And then we're going to get their planets, which is coming with Genesis, The new Planet Tech. Planet Tech. So that should be cool as well. But those are 26. We're talking about 25. The Perseus was also released towards the end of the year, and with it was a ton of excitement. This is also a pretty anticipated ship, another one off the backlog. Not quite a capital, but it'll fight kind of like one.
Captain, you better get up here.
We're picking up a distress call.
General quarters. All hands to general quarters. Down in Act 4. Business on foot. General quarters. All hands to general quarters station. Up and forward starboard. Down in Act 4. Business on foot.
I love these. I love the cameras that they do that are attached to the head of the character when they're in the turret. It looks so cool. Especially when there's a little bit of flipping going on. I love those shots.
Reading multiple contacts.
Love the zoom. You waited a little bit. Ooh. Hell yeah. Love that. Yay. Ooh. Was that a pilot fired torpedo? I can't get over that. It's so funny. They love sticking to that. I wanted my quantum clouds to light up like that. Oh my god, I just realized they got all the big selling ships here for this shot. They were like, don't you love it? Give us your wallet! Fight the Vandal! So yeah, that was the release of the Perseus. Very high hype. They made a lot of money from that one, but also a lot of excitement. Honestly, I don't own the ship, but I've flown and served on one, and God, it's good fun when you have like a good 5 group. Anywhere from a 3 to a 5 to even like a 6-7 people group on the Perseus is a really good time. And I think that more than anything, we keep getting these different ships that are slowly building out this idea of larger scale ship combat. I know that they're trying to time it at the same time they're doing engineering or anything, but honestly, these big ships are coming really early for the gameplay they're supposed to be doing. And I like that they're kind of pressuring the devs to keep up with that gameplay so that they don't feel too out of place, because it is starting to become very apparent that we need things like social tools, we need better permission systems, hell, we even need a better ability to log on and off from people's ships if any of these ships are going to be a long-term reality. So we'll see what they do with it in 2026, but at least this release coming off the back of the Idris and the Polaris, next year is going to be the Galaxy. We're also probably getting the Ironclad. Big ships, we're in the age of big ships. We also got the Salvation though, which was a tiny ship. This is the opposite. This was the one that we saw all the way back in this video. We looked at this at the beginning of the year.
So it was like, had some inspiration from that.
This is the RSI salvage they were looking to deliver, and they brought it in. Yeah. It looks a little similar, right? It looks mostly like what they were showing us. And again, this is just like the Golem. It's another sign that they're looking at the playability of the game from every level. They want people to be able to get into this game easily based on what they want to do. Obviously, this will sell well as a game package, but even in the game, this offers a really good opportunity for them to offer missions that, from like a mission giver, let's say you go to Nyx and Recco Battaglia is a mission giver who introduces you to mining. And in order to do the mission, she has you do a couple of things, but then she rents you out a Salvation. Much more feasible than renting you out a Reclaimer or something, right? So I think this makes for a nice spot in the game. Natural progression, industrial gameplay. It's only 14 meters long, so it's pretty small, and you can get it into different places doing different things. But it's also a good workhorse. We use a lot of these in our org ops now, when we're trying to do a whole bunch of salvage in a small area. And yeah, I think it's a good addition to the game. Right alongside the Golem, right alongside another one that we're about to see, the Golem Ox, and some other of the starter ships. We also got the Clipper around the same time. This is IAE. I'm just covering the last month or so of stuff now. Clipper, I just released a video on, is, I think, a monumental representation of this game. Much like the Perseus, Polaris, and Idris have like shown how big ship stuff is starting to happen in Star Citizen, I think the Clipper is showing us how the solo focused gameplay is about to be really big. I actually posted about this on the tweets. I don't know if it's got any attention, but there is this belief that solo players are being scared off more and more from this game with each update. I personally think that there's a lot of things in this game that are not being hard locked off from solo players. And I think if anybody is being scared off from this game for solo gameplay, it's probably for the best. To be honest, if you don't feel like there is solo capable gameplay in this game right now, then you shouldn't play. Because all of the solo capable gameplay, at least a lot of it, is very much like make your own fun. You can run some combat missions, you can run investigation missions, you can go mining, you can go salvaging, all on contracts. But when it comes down to thinking there's no solo capable gameplay, if none of that is good enough and you're not having fun just flying around in the game running contracts or finding outposts and stuff, then yeah, you shouldn't be playing. It's not worth it. That being said, I think that the Clipper is a very clear sign that solo gameplay is important to them. I can't pause this. Maybe we can go to the trailer itself. If you look at the layout of the ship, which is where everyone has paused it, you have an engineering segment here. You have a habitation segment here. You have flight control here, medical gameplay, crafting gameplay, and cargo hauling. This is Star Citizen. Generally, when they're making ships in this game, they make them to fit whatever they think the game is at the moment. So you go back to the Cutlass Black, it's clearly a different ship than it would be if it was brought into the game right now. This is clearly showing that they want a player not to do cargo hauling, because you can't carry a ton of cargo on here, not to take in ambulance patients and get money from doing medical gameplay, because you can't bring patients up to the second deck on your ship, and not to have a whole bunch of people living here. You have a place for a bed and a little bit of engineering. Like, this is the quintessential solo player ship, and I think this shows that a lot of the stuff that they probably have coming down the pipeline utilizes the stuff in this ship. They're not just going to make the Clipper for no reason. And so both this year for me was both a big sign that they are wanting to get more of the large scale gameplay in for groups, but also a huge sign, especially more recently with this, that the solo gameplay is coming together. And it fits in with what they said at the Star Citizen 1.0 panel the year before. That being said, the Clipper did come out at a time when there is also a lot of conversation about not so solo focused gameplay. But we'll get to that. That's right here. First, there was also the MDC. This is not a huge deal. I didn't even touch on the MTC. But both of those vehicles are one and the same chassis that came into the game to offer a new, more of like a 1 to 2 person ground vehicle expert experience. You can carry some stuff with you. You might get a suit locker. With this model specifically, you get a PDC on the top. And that's also big because, again, I think this is yet another thing that helps to emphasize a solo-focused game going forward. In fact, while they advertised this, I'm pretty sure they specifically mentioned that they made this with the idea of people running bunkers and missions that could go inside and have this turret cover them from the outside while they're doing whatever it is they want to do. Let's see if they say that here. It's literally keeping somebody outside to protect you while you're inside doing whatever you want in a point of interest, running a mission. That on its own, I think, is naturally going to help solo players play this game a lot more. If it works.
The MDC is the ultimate ground support vehicle that you can take into battle.
It's designed to give you that little bit extra protection.
There's no vehicle that's better to support your team.
The first thing you're going to notice when you see the MDC is the PDT on the back, and Point Defense Turret. The PDT itself is new. It's a ballistic Gatling version of the existing bearing point defense turrets we have elsewhere in the game. Obviously, being a ballistic, it has finite ammo, so this will need to go back to a location to reload. But the trade-off for that is that it has an increased alpha damage, so it is more useful against shielded and armored targets.
So the reason we decided to put a PDT on a ground vehicle was because when you have events like Jumptown and people are there loading their ships and getting other bits and pieces, you're very vulnerable to attack, giving them a different means to actually defend themselves or if they're on their own.
So I think that's a good addition, and I want to highlight it because just like with the jump jets on the, where was the freaking, wherever we brought in, we were talking about, yeah, this guy. Just like the jump jets on this guy, I think that the turret on this represents a pretty significant piece of tech that's going to be useful later. They actually were supposed to have AI turrets in the game this year, and they had even put it on the roadmap. Did they take that off? I think it was in the 4.3 section. They had AI FPS turrets, and I think they're gone. Yeah, I guess they must have removed them. So we're still waiting for that, but I do think this is just, they're getting one step closer every time with these kinds of releases to the point where turrets not only be able to protect our backs, but also will be able to be deployed in cities and stuff where they want to have security that makes sure people with crime stats aren't doing crime statty kind of things. Engineering was fully detailed and partially introduced into the game as of this previous patch. And despite weeks upon weeks of people saying it was going to kill solo gameplay, it's yet another thing that I don't think really is. Now, it complicates solo gameplay, or rather it can. Ultimately, I think it's designed to help more. It has problems, it has glitches, the armor isn't working consistently well. The wear and tear is still, I believe, not even implemented fully. There's plenty of balance that's going to be done, and a lot of the ships still have partial or very basic functionality. These are obviously problems with the release of engineering, but this like bubbling up idea that Star Citizen is becoming a not solo player game is not one I agree with. But yeah, engineering was a really big addition to the game, one we're still wrapping our heads around, but ultimately this was the first major feature addition. This was the reason that he had laid out this whole EPTU in the beginning of the year anyways, and unfortunately it took the entire year for it to happen. But I do think that if it didn't happen, this year would be finishing off much worse in consideration than it is. I think the fact that they were able to actually get turned back to features, testing the Vulkan API, testing combat improvements with FPS, NPCs, and testing engineering and getting it into the game. This was a good addition. They needed to get this in, I think, before the end of the year, just so that they could say they're using the EPTU. So that's like the big hits of the year. Now I actually completely forgot to follow these polls, but I think now we can take that time at the beginning of this talk to to look over how people were feeling positivity-wise throughout the year. Starting with the first month of the year. So I stopped tracking around August because, well, I just wasn't. But I'll fill this out soon, and I'm going to make a video about this whole thing. But if we go to, let's get rid of some of these tabs. This is a lot of tabs. Our first poll had 10% of people being happy. This is out of 6,000 votes. 10% of people were happy, 23% were unhappy. Let me see the results, folks, are almost always the same, around 10%. And the coasting folks are always generally between 50 and 60%. We will likely only see the happy and not happy numbers fluctuating here. I'll make this bigger for you guys so you can actually see. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on these. I'm just going to scroll through and find each one, and we'll compare the numbers. You remember them yourself, if you can. But I can touch on up here as well as we go through at least the first half. So January, 10% happy, 23% unhappy. Jumping forward a little bit. Hey, this is when we were moving out back to Turkey. I'm so glad we're not moving back and forth like this anymore. February, much less votes at 2.7%. 10% of people said they were happy, 22% said unhappy. Is most relatively the same numbers, same balance. Forward to March, we had 18% of people suddenly saying they were happy, with 17% saying they were not happy. A little bit of a movement on both of those. But going forward to April, from 18% we rose to 21% people happy, 12% unhappy. So the beginning of the year was a pretty solid, let's see, happy votes were here. Yeah, so around March, it passed up. And going into April, there is more positivity, I guess, than not. Following month was, here we go. This would have been May, I believe. 23% of people said they were happy, but 19% said they were unhappy. It was definitely, yeah. So, you know, there were things happening. And I think the biggest thing to note from these numbers is a lot of times this has to do with whatever is happening right in the beginning of like at that time, that month, that day. People are very much answering short term rather than long term. So take these all with a grain of salt. This is May. Usually I'm putting this in on like the 21st of the month. Yeah, 23rd of the month. So this would have been right after the Flight Blade stuff, right after the Idris release, and they had right after they did like the, oh God, the releases of new Idrises and all that kind of stuff. So there might be some emotions mixed up in there. But we jump forward into June. Oh God, this is when we moved back to Turkey and my graphics card, my capture card was breaking. Moving forward again, 16% said they were happy, but 17% said they were unhappy. So the tide has turned. It originally started with more people being unhappy in the previous year. But by this point, that unhappiness number had climbed to 19%. And finally, the happy number had dropped down. And so we were having, you know, it was tipping a little bit. It's summertime. People getting hot and stuff. You know how it is. Forward a bit more. This is August, I believe. Only 9% of people were happy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this was 32% of people said they were not happy. I believe this was when the resource rush had first kicked off, and for a lot of people it just was not working out. Yeah, that was a rough month. So August, it was getting hefty. As we move forward in the year though, September had 6,000 voters. More happy than unhappy again. Look at that. 17% happy compared to 16% unhappy. Tide's turning, but it's still pretty close. The very next month, did I do this twice? Did I just not make any posts in between the months? Interestingly, I don't know when this one was exactly. That's going to be tough to figure out. But the next one I did actually had people being less happy than happy again. So if we go forward another year or another month. So this one would be after CitizenCon. Again, less people are happy than not happy. So CitizenCon did not pick people up, it seems, assuming these are the same people. November. Overall current feelings have 27% of people happy compared to 11% of people unhappy. A huge swing. And this could have been the release of Nyx. It could have been the release of the Perseus. It could have been the release of the Clipper. I don't know. But clearly in November, they really hit it off with making people feel a little bit better about the game. And at that point, now we're here. And you know what? It's that time of the month, guys. So why don't we go ahead and do the next poll together? The final poll of 2026. So this poll is actively up there. You can go ahead and answer it if you'd like. Sure, some people have. And we'll see what the final feelings are. But ultimately, this has been most of 2025. A very, very, very long summary of it. Good luck getting through it. But for anybody who does, I hope you got an idea of what happened in 2025 in Star Citizen, the meandering path that we took, and where we might be heading from here. I didn't cover everything. There was still some stuff happening in these late days and stages. The VR stuff is a big deal, but I think this is most of the big points, so hope you get something out of it.